Here's the chapter one, and we will see ecology. Ecology is the study of relationship between an organism and how it interact with that environment. This is called as ecology. Basically, environment is divided into environment is divided classified into two groups: biotic components and abiotic components. Biotic word is always used when we are concerned about the living organisms. So when we are concerned with the life, when we study about the living things present in the environment, these are called as the biotic components. Okay, so when we are concerned with the living organisms or biotics, what are they? Anything that breathe in, anything that deals with the consumption of oxygen is coming under the category of the biotic components. So plants, animals, human, everybody in the environment, this like which is breathing in, is called as biotic component. Now, what are the abiotic components, and still we need them for our survival? Are they could be the minerals, they could be different like soil, atmosphere, layer of gases surrounding us, who is responsible or taking part in building up of our environment, is called as the abiotic component. So basically there are two types of components present in the building up of the environment: biotic component and abiotic components. When it comes to the biotic components, they are the living things. Abiotic components are the non-living things present in the environment. Both biotic and abiotic components of an environment are interrelated. We need minerals for our survival. We need enzymes in our body for our survival, and they need us. So everybody is interdependent upon each other. No, nothing can survive in a single. Singly, we both need partnership of biotic and abiotic components for our survival. Now, simply the system of interaction and interdependence between the biotic and abiotic components of the environment is called as ecosystem. So there are two major factors who built up the ecosystem: biotic and abiotic components. Both are interrelated to build up the environment. So and this is called as the ecosystem. There you can see in this natural cycle, this speaks simply, biotic components of the environments are present in the abiotic components of the environment are present in the biotic one. So these two are interrelatable. Obviously, human body or other living organisms, we are the biotic components, and when these minerals are present inside the living organisms, we can say that they are staying or lying or proceeding in the biotic components. So abiotic components are again minerals, potassiums present in the human body, the muscles, the organs, and how we are surviving in, they are present in the abiotic component. So that's it till this point. Yeah. So in an ecosystem, the matters like in an ecosystem, the abiotic matters like gases such as carbon dioxide, which is present in our body, water present in our body, different factors, we cannot live without them. So when we are interacting with each other, it means we are interdependent upon each other. So transport of energy into different forms, the energy actually itself is a non-living thing, is an abiotic thing, but how is it helping? It is helping us, the non-living organisms like us, to survive. So basically we are producing energy by using certain gases, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. We want it, we need it for our survival. If we are not having this energy, we will die basically. So in this topic, we have seen that ecosystem. What is ecosystem? It was the dependency or linkage between biotic and abiotic components. Then we have seen what the biotic components are. They are the living organisms. They are life dependent upon the organism. They are those like components who actually depend upon respiration. That is how. Again, when it comes to the abiotic components, these are those components who are non-living. They don't need oxygen, they don't need respiration activity to do. Next thing is how these two are interconnectable, they're interrelatable. So, in an ecosystem, the abiotic matters like carbon dioxide and water were present, they are consumed by the biotic factors. So, water, carbon dioxide, it was the abiotic, but it was consumed for the survival of the biotic organisms. Okay, after the point they use those biotic components to convert into the food. Transport of energy of different organisms of the biotic components are food chains. It's one of the most important functions of an ecosystem basically. So when it comes to the different factors of the like they use those minerals for performance of their activities. How? We will study there is a thing called as ATP or energy molecule. We will extract energy from those dead organisms and then we are going to consume it for our survival. So in an ecosystem facilitates the transport of different minerals in a cyclic way. Moving ahead, this carbon and oxygen cycle is that when an organism dies, it releases certain gases out of his body, and then remaining group or remaining those who are alive now, they are going to use those oxygens or gases for their survival. So we can say that interdependency is collecting or grabbing or extracting molecule from one organism and inserting it into the body of other organisms for their survival purposes. This is the interlinkage between biotic and abiotic factor. We can have two questions out of this topic. What is the difference between biotic and abiotic factors or components? And we can answer it as biotic components are those who are dependent upon oxygen. They need oxygen, they breathe in, even they can do respiration. They are the living creatures such as humans and animals. Abiotic components are those who are non-living. They can't respire, such as certain gases, oxygen, carbon dioxide, etc. Next thing would be what is the how biotic and abiotic components are inter dependent upon or interrelatable upon each other. So we can say that both are hard. Even biotic factors are not survivable without abiotic components, and even abiotic components are also useless in the absence of the biotic components. When it comes to the biotic components, they need minerals. They even the organs when they're inside the human body are not living, but they help us to live properly. Okay. Next thing is when it comes to the enzymes, even enzymes present in the human body or even other organisms are abiotic, but they are necessary for the survival of biotic components. And even no matter gases are present in atmosphere, there should be some consumer as well. So if environment keep on producing gases, oxygen, carbon dioxide, etc., it doesn't they are useless until unless there could be some consumers, because in absence of the biotic factors or in absence of the biotic components, if gases keep on producing, they will not be used, and even they will be upon like unavailability of consumers or unavailability of biotic factors or components, those gases will become used to enhance or increase the atmospheric temperature, and it will also be not good for the environment. That's it till this. The next topic would be a carbon and oxygen cycle. When it comes to carbon and oxygen cycle, in this particular cycle, we will see how these two elements are transported in the through the entire environment. So first we got carbon and oxygen. They are the two basic elements. They are essential to life. Obviously, even human skeleton or bones of us are made by the carbon. When it comes to oxygen, we need it for breathing in, breathing out, breathing out. We need it. Okay. After that, there are essential minerals. They are necessary they are naturally present in the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide and gases. How are they present? We, the human, we need oxygen to be taken into us. We need oxygen for our breathing purpose. And when it comes to trees consume what we excrete, what we breathe out is carbon dioxide. And when it comes to the plants, they are going to intake carbon dioxide. So we both are taking, okay, so plants produce oxygen as a result of their photosynthesis, and when it comes to the human, we produce carbon dioxide. So they are going to intake carbon dioxide for their breathing, you could say that, and we are going to intake oxygen what they excrete. So we are interdependent upon each other. Now they constantly circulate between the environment and living organisms in cyclic way. When plants prepare food in photosynthesis, they take they take carbon from the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide. So when it comes to the plants prepare food as a result of photosynthesis. But the photosynthesis is, it is simply a reaction between carbon dioxide, a reaction between when oxygen combines in a way that it will give rise to a food product which is called as glucose. Glucose is what? It is the food of plant. So the first point we have learned over here, that plants are going to produce their food, and as a result of that process they are going to release oxygen, and we are going to consume oxygen. Now what are they going to do? We just excrete, or we when we breathe out, it's like when I am exhaling, I am releasing carbon dioxide. Plants are going to take that carbon dioxide, and that carbon dioxide will combine with water. What carbon dioxide is? It is CO2. That CO2 will be attaching or combining with water. Upon its combination with water, it gives rise to glucose. This molecule is called as glucose, which is C6H12O6. Then it will give us oxygen as well. So it is a process when they are going to combine with each other. This process, when plant ends up with the production of a glucose molecule, by using six molecules of water to combine with the six molecules of carbon dioxide. When these combine, they give rise to this is process of photosynthesis, and that is how different gases are naturally transported between the atmosphere or environment. Now they constantly circulate between environment and living organism in a cycle way. How? You can see that there is a sun. Sun is throwing up energy. Plants need sunlight for the production of their food, which is called as glucose, and giving us oxygen. So when sunlight reaches plant, or when sunlight falls at plant, plants are going to use carbon dioxide to combine with water. These two react with each other. When they combine with each other, they give rise to glucose plus oxygen. Glucose, they will store that glucose inside them for the later usage, and oxygen is released into atmosphere, which we consume for breathing purposes. Okay, next point they move ahead is like, okay, when tree released gases, or maybe when tree, let's say, died, they got to decompose. Decompose means that the conversion of body into the dead organic material, which is already dead, into further simplified form. So when the tree decompose, they convert themselves into fossils. Now these fossils are going to be utilized by the different factories as a form of combustion. Combustion is the burning process in the presence of oxygen. This is called as the combustion process. Okay, from fossil fuel combustion, the produced gas is carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide is then released into atmosphere, and when it is released into atmosphere, again it is consumed by the tree. Also, how carbon dioxide is added into the atmosphere, even burning process will release carbon dioxide into atmosphere. Animals will release carbon dioxide into atmosphere. That is how the cycle have to go on. Next point is, when plants prepare food in photosynthesis, they take in carbon from the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide. So they take carbon from atmosphere, which is thrown up into atmosphere as a result of certain reactions. They give up oxygen and carbon into atmosphere, and then they take oxygen from atmosphere. These two will be combined, and they will give rise to oxygen. Oxygen to got combined with carbon. Upon their combination or reactivity, they give rise to carbon dioxide. The process they in this process of energy transformation, or like glucose formation or photosynthesis, they will release oxygen. We, the living creatures, we will use oxygen for our breathing purposes. That is how carbon and oxygen is transported from atmosphere to living, from non-living to living, and vice versa. Plants are autotrophs. They prepare their own food by the process of photosynthesis. Next process is, all plants and animals respire. Like we respire, we intake oxygen. They respire to get energy. That could be also called as the food process of their food production. During respiration, they take in oxygen from photosynthesis, and they produce or release carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. So they intake from one side and they return into atmosphere in the other form. Similarly, during decomposition and combustion means burning in the presence of oxygen. Combustion of biomasses, which what biomass is, it is simply matter of the dead bodies. So when there is a matter of dead bodies present, the oxygen gas present in atmosphere is used, and the carbon of biomass is released into the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide. So we can say that the combustion of biomass is there, the burning of matter of dead bodies basically. Next point would be, they would be releasing oxygen gas, which was present in the atmosphere, which is then added to the atmosphere, and then they're going to take it from it. It is then used. Carbon came by the burning of by the burning of biomasses. So when they keep on burning, they keep on releasing carbon into atmosphere. Then that carbon will burn with the, or it will combine with the oxygen. When these two gases combine, they give rise to carbon dioxide, and when they give rise to carbon dioxide, we can save it. Okay, here is a cycle given on. Here is a cycle. What is it? See, when there is a cow in the thing number 4.3, that cow is like how oxygen is transported. Simply, that cow is intaking oxygen. Even first process, it starts with the plant. You can write plant, just there is no need to draw the plant. Plant produces oxygen during photosynthesis. Now, when plant produces oxygen during photosynthesis, these oxygens would be combining. It would simply it is added to the atmosphere. As a result of certain reactions, those oxygen will be breathing, and it will be taken in by the different living creatures. Just like a cow over here, it will intake oxygen from the atmosphere, and then when it comes to its exhalation or its expiration, it releases carbon dioxide. So that it will deliver carbon dioxide to the that particular to the trees. Then trees intake it, and they are going to combine it with the water. There you can see haze and like carbon dioxide is being taken by the plant, and as a result it is producing oxygen. In the topic 1.2, we are going to see about the energy flow in the ecosystem. They are going to teach us how energy is going to flow from one cycle to the next cycle, or from one organism to another organism. Simply, there should be a basic material or basic composite material who is going to synthesize certain products, which is called as obviously producers. When it comes to producers, producers are those creatures who are going to produce food for all of us. They are going to produce food for even themselves. So in this category, plants are the producers. They are going to produce food, as well as they are going to help us to have oxygen, and later on we will consume that oxygen. So the concept of producer is that producers are those individuals they are who are going to prepare their own food, as well as they are going to provide us with the energy by the process of photosynthesis. So as per your book, we know that the organisms need energy for their life activities. They get energy from food in an ecosystem. When they are getting the energy from food and ecosystem, they produce energy via the process of photosynthesis. What was photosynthesis? As studied in the last lecture, it was the process when plants are going to receive energy from sunlight. They are going to make a combination of carbon dioxide plus water, and then they are going to give us oxygen and glucose they are going to keep on them. However, oxygen is released into atmosphere, and then we are going to consume that oxygen for the breathing purpose. Now, during photosynthesis, plants trap energy from sunlight and they store it as chemical energy. Animals consume the food prepared by plants, and they are thus termed as consumers. So, the basic thing was producers. What producers produce, human and other individuals are going to take from them. When we are going to take energy from them, we who are taking energy from them, we are termed as the consumers. So human, animals, as we are dependent upon plants, so that they would produce energy, and then we could have energy from them. So if we are receiving energy from them, we are consumers. Okay, animals consume prepared food, which was prepared by the plants, and then we are going to take them. Now, primarily, there are certain types or divisions of the consumers. So basically, we can say that animals that eat plant directly, who directly eat producers, are called as the primary consumers. We can call it as herbivores. Why? Because they are directly eating herbs or producers, basically, or the plants. Now, animals that eat other animals, they are called as secondary consumers. We can also call it as those who eat primary consumers are called as the secondary or tertiary consumers. So both of these secondary and tertiary categories are those consumers who eat other animals. Omnivores are those who eat both plants as well as meat of other animals. Just like we can say that we used to eat vegetables, we also eat other animals. Meat or mutton of other animals are the best example of them. During this process of eating and being eaten, sunlight energy stored in the plant food, it is transferred. It is basically this is a form of chemical energy. It is then transferred from producers to the level of consumers. Basically, when sunlight is falling on the plants are going to take that energy in. They are going to use that energy in the process of food production. After that process, they are going to produce a food, maybe as the glucose and other like oxygen particles. Okay, some of that energy is stored inside the plant. Remaining amount of that energy is delivered into their products, such as glucose and oxygen. So we are indirectly taking energy from the producers, and then we are going to consume it. That is how we can say that energy is trapped by the producers, and then through producers that amount of energy is delivered to primary, then secondary, and then tertiary consumers. In this way, energy moves through a certain cycle from producers to the consumers. Haze energy flow, they we can see that the cycle starts with the producer with the decomposers basically under the ground. Generally, there are although decomposers are everywhere, but generally we consider they are present under the ground. The bacteria, the fungi, they are present inside the like ground. Could be fungi and algae and all that. So here they are. Now those decomposers are going to throw up, or they are going to provide producers with the energy. So producers are basically eating, or they are taking food from the decomposers. They will take energy from the decomposers, and producers are going to grow up. Let's say the plant have been grown up. Now that plant would take energy from sun. As you can see, the energy is falling from sun. When energy falls from sun, they are going to consume that energy in order to produce glucose. Once glucose and oxygen and other material are produced, primary consumers, generally over here it's a grasshopper. It is going to attack on the herbs or the greenery, basically the producers. Now, upon attacking these producers, that primary consumers is going to deliver energy to the secondary consumers. How? Because secondary consumers are going to eat primary consumers. Once they are eating primary consumers, they are going to through their energy. Like secondary consumers are also being eaten by the higher secondary animals. You can organisms. You can say that. In this case, there is a snake. Who is going to eat even the secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, who is even bigger than this thing, is going to eat it in. And again, when this organism is further eaten by other individuals, or even if they die, they are going to be fallen onto the ground. They are decomposed by the bacteria, fungi, and other decomposers. Upon their decomposition, they are being made part of the soil as a fossil fuels, and then again that heat is going to be re-irrigated or given back to the earth soil or earth surface. So that energy is given back to the earth. Again, when energy come back from the sun, plants are going to take that energy, and in this way producers keep on receiving and delivering energy. Food chain and food web. But the food chain and food web is, food chain is simply the simple chain starting from primary consumer, starting from producers to tertiary consumers. When it comes to food web, 3 to 4 food chains are working in interlinkage with each other to give rise to food web basically. Now production of food and the feeding relationship among the organisms at the different levels form a chain called as food chain. A food chain starts at the producer's level and is followed by the herbivores level, which is basically the primary consumers who are herb eaters basically. Then it continues to the carnivores, could be secondary consumers and tertiary. At the end of this cycle, dead organisms or dead bodies are being eaten, co-consumed by the decomposers. In reality, the food chains are not simple, because obviously one animal is not eating the secondary. One animal could eat multiple things. So in reality, food chains are not simple because animals eat a variety of organisms. Obviously, when it comes to a bird can eat an insect, a bird can eat a snake, a bird can eat anything generally. It can also eat rats. So they are saying that the process of eating basically is having the multiple dimensions. So that is how when we mention that one individual can eat multiple insects, that the food chains would go difficult or complex. So a fox, for example, does not feed only on rabbits, but also takes squirrels in its diet. Similarly, owl and hawk, they may also take different organisms as their food. So the relationship between different organisms can be expressed more accurately as a food web. So you should be clear when it comes to the food chain. Food chain is simply linkage between a food chain is simply the linear, the straightaway link from producers to consumers, then tertiary and secondary consumers, and all time they should be ending at the decomposers. Meanwhile, if we keep on attaching multiple food chains together, they will give rise to food web. So we can say that the relationship or interactions between different organisms can be more expressed and more accurately if it is expressed as a food web. So one animal can feed on multiple things that give rise to the food web. Looking upon to the figure, if we see that here is the producers and here are the rabbits, which are basically the herbivores. When they are the herbivores, they are further eating they are being eaten by the primary carnivores. So ahead they would be further eaten by the secondary carnivore. That is the food chain. Now how is it different from the food web? There is a food web. Here is the grass. Again, just below the grass there would be a soil and decomposers. Who can eat grass? Rabbit is feeding on this producer. Mouse is feeding on this producer or grass, or even grasshopper is feeding on it. Then you can see they are further divided into multiple chains. A grasshopper can be eaten by a frog. Further, it can also be a diet of a bird. Okay, these two, even a frog and a bird, they can also be eaten by the snake. Okay, now this frog, this is an insect. It could be eaten by the sparrow. It can be eaten by a sparrow, or what you call this is owl. Okay, mouse can also be a food of it. Mouse, even one mouse can be eaten by or can be preyed by these three divisions. Okay, here is a rabbit. Rabbit could be eaten by a fox. Further, it could be eaten by a hawk. So we can say that if multiple food chains are interconnected with each other, they are called as a food web. But when simple linear linkage is there, it is called as food chain. Even in a food chain, we can also spare this food web. There is simple point. When we look up to this consideration, when we let's say start from this grass is being eaten by this grasshopper. Further, it is eaten by a bird, and even a bird is eaten by a snake, and this snake is further eaten by a hawk. So this is the food chain number one. Moving ahead, if we consider this mouse eats grass, and that mouse could be eaten by an owl, but further this owl could be even eaten by this hawk. So that is how multiple food chains, if interlinked with each other, they are called as food webs. Ecological pyramids. Pyramids are basically when they show linkage or between the concentration. So, or maybe from the grassroots level or from the basic level to the extensive level. This is called as linkage or simply the pyramidal concept. So we can say that the different feeding levels of organisms in an ecosystem are called as trophic levels. Example of them is since producers are at the very basic chain or very basic level. So we would like to place producers at the very bottom level, at the very base point. They are called as producers. They would lie at the very baseline. Above from the producers, they are the herbivores. What are they? They are the herb eaters. They are the greenery eaters. Ahead of them is the right on that particular point of that pyramid. There would be the primary consumers, which are primary carnivores. So we can see that the biologists express their trophic relationships by the diagram that take the same shape of pyramids. These diagrams are thus called as the ecological or biological pyramids, showing that who is lying at the baseline, who is above of it, and then gradually. So at the base of the pyramid, there are the producers or green plants. The upper levels are occupied by the primary, secondary, and tertiary consumers are in a further ascending order. Okay, usually primary consumers are herbivores and the rest are the carnivores or the omnivores. So in our case, humans are the omnivores because we can eat both the things, the greenery, the producers as well as the next stuffs available. Next point would be the ecological pyramids are usually based on number and weight of organisms at each trophic level. Both the numbers and weight of organisms decrease from the baseline to the top line of the pyramid. So gradually they are moving ahead to the decreasing order, sorry. How can we explain the decrease in number of weight? Basically, it's been estimated that in the ecological pyramid, the herbivores are generally 1/10 of the body weight of the producers, and further carnivores are smaller. Further, okay, looking at this thing, we can say that if we just take a weight of about the very basic point, which is the producers, the weight of grass could be 1 lakh kg. Moving ahead, there is a small, the number goes, the weight goes different. So the weight of these herbivores who are actually the producer eaters, or who are actually the baseline eaters, their weight could be 10 kg. Further moving ahead, a primary carnivore who is the eater of this lower bottom, I mean like who are eater of this herbivores, their weight could be even lesser. And further, who can eat all of them except this producer, the lion, the secondary consumer, their weight could only be about 100 kg. So we can say that it's about the weighting of individuals. What is it? There is a huge number of producers available. Then the number of herbivore eaters are comparatively lesser. Their numbers are even lesser. Even their weight is further lesser than that of the producers. Ahead, there would be a primary carnivores. Primary carnivores could be of 1000 kg. Their weight is even lesser than that of the herbivores. Moving ahead is the like principle of all, the secondary consumer. His weight is even lesser than that of all of them. So it is basically a pyramid, but ecological pyramid is comparison of weight of all the individuals who are going to make a chain. Further, we can look and we can compare it to the body weight of primary and the last one, the producers. So their weight is even decreasing when we move from very baseline, when we move from producers to the secondary consumers. Even we can compare it about the prey and being preyed. So we can say that the actual count number of lines are getting lesser. So number of primary consumers are at least bigger than that of the secondary consumers. Further, herbivores are huge, as well as there is the world covered with the greenery. So they are even greater in the amount, their amount of availability or their number present onto the earth. So that is how we can use pyramid to compare the data or to compare the various data. Generally, the thing that is available in excessive amount is present at the bottom. The thing that is always bigger amount but less than that of producer is present above it. Primary consumers are present even are greater than this, but less than that of the less than that of the herbivores. So they are here. Even this graph, this decreasing order of this pyramid is also showing that thing. So that was it for the ecological pyramids. Organisms interact with each other in three major ways, which are as follows. Ecological interdependence. Organisms in ecological communities interact with one another in three major ways: prey, predators, consumers. These are all the some basic concepts. So if we consider the very basic level, this is called as the predations. What is the predation? Consumers, or basically the eaters that actively hunt other organisms, are called as predators. So the one who can eat other organisms is called as the predator. The one that is going to be eaten is called as prey. So the organisms which a predator feeds on is called as a prey. I had a frog that eats an insect is a predator basically, and the thing that is being eaten, the insect, is called a prey. The frog itself could be prey to the other organisms such as snakes, storks. The predator in turn are prey to long carnivores. So everything in the universe can be eaten by the other organism. So the size of a predator and prey populates are their populations are closely linked together. in large prey population, it supports more predation. Obviously, when multiple individuals are living in the same area, they could be eaten by the multiple predators. Further, those prey can eat other small organisms. So we can say that a large population supports more predation. If a prey population gets it grows or shrinks, grows mean if it grows up, the it means that the individual who were eating that populations are getting lesser. As well as if it shrinks, if it gets smaller, there are more individuals who are eating that particular organism. The number of predators may also change as well depending upon the environmental factors. So, as per summary, predation is when organisms that actively fond other organisms are called as predators. The organisms upon which a predator feeds is called prey. An organism or a frog that eats an insect is a predator. The insect is the prey. The frog itself is prey to other organisms such as snakes or dogs. Obviously, when something is being eaten, it's a prey. When something is eaten, that individual is called the predators. So, in case of this example, when frog is eating an insect, the frog is predator. The thing it is eating is a prey. As well as the number when multiple individuals are living in the same area, they got to eat each other. When they are eating each other, it means they are having more chances of attacking other individuals. So they got more chances of eating the individuals. Competition. A competition is something, it occurs when there is a competition between two or more individual in a population in order to use the same resource. The way human feel competition between like when we are working in a class, people feel compete with each other because they are having same goal, making a good impression. So when individuals compete from same resources, as you can see, these two individuals are competing, or maybe they are fighting. So they could fight for a food, they could fight for some for being a leader of that herd. So they could when same individuals of a population are fighting for same common goal or same resource, this is called as competition. Food, water, shelter could be best example of them. So we know that though every organism or every environment has limited amount of sources. When one or more individuals use the same resource, they became less available. So let's say if all of the human keep on eating meat, we continuously keep on eating meat, the concentration or the amount of meat available would go lesser. It would fall off. Competition can occur among the individual within the same population because they are fighting for the same resource, and obviously deficiency or a fall off of that resource would take place. Okay, then we can also call it as the intraspecific competition when certain individuals are fighting within the group for the same competition or for the same resource. It could be called as intraspecific competition, or maybe intra-species competition. Also, there is a term like when the competition occur between different species, like this is called as inter-specific competition. So when the competition occur within the same species, just like when goats are fighting for grass, this is called as intra-specific competition. When different preys are fighting, or you can say that, let's say when certain birds are fighting, birds from the maybe a crow, maybe a sparrow, fighting to eat an insect. This is an inter-specific competition because members of different species are fighting for the same resource or fighting for the same material to be consuming up. The next point would be symbiosis. Symbiosis is when a relationship between two species, when they live together and they live in the same area, they live together closely in an area, is called as symbiosis. It could be called as a friendship relationship. This type of symbiosis, or even is divided into multiple types, a type of symbiosis in which one species gets benefit while other species is neither benefited nor harmed. So there are certain individuals who are when living in attachment with the plants and they are not going to harm it. They are called as commensalism. Lichens and small plants grow on the trunks of big trees. They get nutrients from the tree, but they are not harming or not benefiting the tree, but they are simply living on that tree particularly. The way we live on the earth, we walk onto it, we this in the same way when lichen grow on trunks of tree, they are going to take the nutrients from that tree, but they are not benefiting, not harming that tree. A symbiotic relationship in which both the individuals are getting the benefits, not the one, both are getting benefits by living in the same area, by living at a particular place, both are getting benefit from each other. Give and take policy, this is called as symbiosis. So an example is the relationship between flowers and insects that pollinate them is called as mutualism, because plants flowers are going to provide plants with the pollen. They are going to support them, they are going to carry their pollen from one plant or from one flower to another, and indirectly plants are going to feed those individuals, so both are getting benefits. As well as when algae is covering the tree got protection from algae and algae got food from those trees got protected by the covering of that algae layer over it, and algae is going to take food from the plant. So an example is the relationship between the flowers and insects that pollinate them. The flowers provide food to those insects in the form of nectar, which in turn that insects help in a cross pollination of the flower. Cross pollination of the flower is that they are going to carry the anther and stamen from one part of flower to another other part, like anther and pollen grain. Sorry. So they are going to make the trade between two flowers. This is called as the cross pollination. So in this way, both the individuals are getting benefits from each other. This is called as mutualism. Ecological imbalances. What is happening in the ecological imbalancing is that some species might be raising their numbers, some species might be getting instinct. Instincts mean that they are going to be ending up. So we can say that the introduction of new species in an ecosystem could be the reason of migration, the reason of migration over hunting. So some species could be added, some species could be released from the as a process of as a process of migration or over hunting. So this is called as the ecological imbalancing. Certain factors are contributing in this particular activity. So we can say that it is all known as the ecological imbalances basically. So when it comes to such ecological imbalancing, we can say that some should survive, some are going to survive, some are going to die. Okay, introduction of new species. How this phenomenon is going to happen? It is basically the entering of a foreign species into an area can lead to cause imbalance the natural ecosystem. Let us say some area was specific or it was just enough to provide food to some frogs, and suddenly some frog eater would be added to this particular area. So that is going to cause ending up or to be a danger for the frog life. As well as if there was an area and that was specific for herbivores, you can say that like only herb eaters would be living there. Meanwhile, due to some migratory phenomena, some certain species would be added and that start eating, that became a carnivorous. So that carnivorous species would start eating those who were eating the herbs basically. So even now, the herb survivals are even going to be eaten by some other thing which is called as carnivorous. So that will lead to cause the ecological imbalancing. Now, in this particular example, we can say that the entry of more foreign substances, more foreign species into an area can lead to cause the imbalance. That imbalance in the natural phenomena would happen simply in Philippines. Some species such as toad and golden snail were introduced. They were artificially added into certain environment. So first example we learned, like in Philippines what happened, a toad and gold snail were added, although they were not the natural habitats, but for the sake of experimentation they were artificially added. Now that population of species went uncontrollable. Why? Because of lack of natural enemies. Obviously, there was nobody to who could eat these two species, so that number got to increase up to a very high level. Why? Because species are controlled. Like every prey should be. Every prey should suffer from a prey, so that the number of individuals could be controlled. If we allow somebody to multiply and no one is there to kill that species, no one is there to eat that prey, that number will be adding, that number will keep on increasing with the passage of time. As well as they, in the following example, they are saying that artificially these two insects were introduced, and with the passage of time, the number keep on multiplying. Then, in order to control that number, they would have to add something new to control that particular number. Next point is overhunting. Overhunting is the overkilling of an individual uncontrollably, noticeably. So it is defined as the relentless chase of wild for games or animals to kill or to catch them, maybe for economical purposes, for personal gain, or for any other reason. So uncontrollable killing of an individual is called as overhunting. That overhunting can lead to cause extinction of many species. So overhunting of one animal causes abundance of other, leading to the imbalance in the ecosystem. Let's say people start killing goats for no reason. So what would happen? Goats are going to eat grass. Even that will lead to cause the imbalancing. That is because we are skipping something who was very important in a food chain. So that is called as overhunting. Okay. So some individuals are killed for the sake of like elephant teeth. Elephant teeth are very expensive. People use it for the ornamental purpose in their houses. So some people, or even in some countries, people kill elephants for the sake of getting their teeth. So that is also called as overhunting. So what overhunting is simply uncontrolled killing of an individual for the sake of getting benefits, or maybe in order to make it a food of a prey. So that is called as overhunting. Shortage of water supply. Obviously, world is getting dehydrated. So why? Because people are wasting water uncontrollably. Nobody is there to ask them. Nobody is there to make them control water. So due to the overpopulation and other constant need for factory made products, the use of water from water bodies has been increased. Obviously, people keep on wasting water. There is nobody to control the loss of water. So what happens in due to the loss of water? Loss of fresh water is there. Obviously, even the water which is available is getting polluted, such as canal, rivers, they are highly polluted. Pollution in water bodies is not only limited to the factory waste. Even people, general public, they keep on adding waste to the water bodies. Even if somebody goes for picnic or near a water bodies, they keep on adding plastics. They keep on throwing waste and garbage into water. So that is a big loss to the water system. Even they are going to cause the environmental pollution inside the like aquatic pollution. Next thing would be more drastic domestic use of water. So due to the overpopulation, due to the excessive uncontrollable number of population, the number of or the level or the rate of water loss is going to be high. So when there are huge number of people living in a house or living in an area, they are contributing a lot in order to promote the loss of water. So obviously, lots of people are there. They keep on adding water. They keep on consuming water, leading to the water pollution. Next thing would be climatic changes are there. They are also affecting the water supply in the environment through flood or droughts. Again, in this cases, due to the climatic changes, glaciers are melting. Due to the melting down of glacier, they are going to give they're going to be melting down. The ice is converted into water, and that water keep on like melting dry with the passage of time. Due to that melting, they are going to cause water loss. Flood came, and obviously, no, there is no way to save water that came along with the flood. Again, this is a water loss causing stuff. So, what is the shortage of water supply? Simply due to the overpopulation, due to the uncontrollable measures, loss of water is called as shortage of water supply. People lack supply, like availability of water. Even in some countries, just like Kuwait, there is a huge shortage of water. People are provided water in the form of canes. Basically, there is a limited supply of water to everybody, and they obviously their survival is hard. So there are two factors we have learned. Overpopulation has contributed to the shortage of water, as well as the water which is available is limited. And if it is available in the limited stock, that is very least to be the least amount of water is available to be used for the humans or other living individuals, right? Because of the overpopulation, they are going to cause because of water pollution. Sorry, so due to the presence of water pollution, they are losing or they are lacking the ability to manage water very well. So that was it for the migration is basically movement or locomotion of organisms for one place to another place. This movement changes the population of a place. This migration usually takes place for the search of food, could be for the better availability of shelter. So birds migrate for for the sake of like searching for the food. Even when environmental conditions got drastically changed, like when there is some area who was like available for their survival, who was having a moderate temperature, but suddenly the summer came and the weather would go out of the box. The weather is not supportive for their survival. Birds tend to move. Even in some conditions, polar bear, who is known for living in an extremely cold area, they migrate sometimes. Why? When it comes to the like they feel it's getting colder, they move a bit lower area of the mountain, and when they feel it's getting hot, a bit hotter, although their survival is very best supportive in the cool conditions, they move upward. So that is called as migration. Generally, migration is movement of organism from one place to another. It is possible for animals also. Human migrate in order for searching of food. That is how migration is going to be made possible. Protection of endangered species are basically human activities cause rapid and widespread environmental changes that affect living things, especially the species of plants and animals which are at the risk of extinction. It means that they might go vanish from the earth's surface. They would no longer be seen after their extinction. So for most, some species have extincted. Some species are at the endangered level, that there's a danger that they might go vanish from the surface of earth. What are the causes of them? Simply there's a habitat loss due to the human activities. We have started we have moved towards the deforestation. Due to the deforestation, we have cut down the trees, and due to that thing, we have make a habitat loss for such species. Humans cut down trees in the forest for for harvesting, maybe for the sake of woods. That is why this thing is not available. We have destroyed their houses, we have destroyed their habitats. They claim for rest or drain wetlands to lose land for agriculture, for mining, and for settlement. Again, this is a great habitat loss. Similarly, pollution and global warming, excessive hunting is the big problem. Why? Because continuous hunting for one species or for one type of species had led to calls ending their life. Loss of their number has resulted. Some of the endangered species of Pakistan are snow leopard. It's no longer, I guess, available. It have extincted. Or even it is endangered. Maybe hardly 100 or 200 of those leopards are available. They are at the highly strong danger of being getting extinct. Snow leopard is obviously at the level of endangered species. Indus river dolphin. This creature is also in one of the endangered species in Pakistan. River dolphin, markhor. There are multiple individuals whose life has been taken by the humans, and they are termed as endangered species. Now, how can we control it? Government develop plans, but obviously they are not implemented. So, such plans include reducing deforestation. They shouldn't be cutting down of the trees. When there is no cutting down of the trees, it means that we can protect the living area, the habitat of those individuals. Such plans include reducing deforestation, setting aside nature reserves, not disturbing nature is another idea. Reducing pollution, because if we reduce pollution, that will cause no harm to the living individuals. They will help them live their life properly. Obviously, when it is pollution, elevation in Earth's temperature would be there. Certain creatures would die due to their drastic changes. Protecting natural habitats is another thing. The hunting and trade of endangered species should be banned. There should be ban in the selling out of such species so that we could multiply their number. Moreover, government makes plan to take endangered species into the protective custody outside their natural habitats. Like keeping them in zoo is a good idea, but it's not a good idea. Why? Because if you change the habitat of those creatures, that habitat or that area might not suit those individuals, and they would even start dying of being alone, or maybe the change of habitat would take their life, because obviously animals are sometimes, even most of the time, they are not adapted if you change their habitat. So that is how the endangered species are at the big fear of loss or to be extincted due to human activities. Simply, carbon and oxygen cycle are the process in which that makes the movement of these two atoms, these two gases circulate between the environment and the organisms. How is it beneficial? Simply, human need oxygen, and we need to get rid of carbon dioxide, what we are extracting. So, what we are excreting? So, carbon dioxide is to be taken by the trees. Trees are going to use it. Obviously, we are producing carbon dioxide if continuously carbon dioxide would keep on producing. That is not good for the environment. So plants are going to intake it, and we are going to outthrow carbon dioxide. That is how it is going to work. The different feeding levels of an organism in an ecosystem is called as trophic level. Obviously, the basic level, there is a massive number of trees, so there are large number of producers lying at the base. Then smaller number of primary consumers, tertiary, and this way we can move ahead to the very small level of the trophic level. The ecological pyramids are calculated based on number and weights of individual at each trophic level. We have to calculate their number. We have to calculate their weight. The feeding relationship among organisms at different levels form a chain called as food chain. They are interlinked. Sometimes this is the plain chain, no link with the other food chain. Just like moving from grass, we will move ahead to the primary consumer, then secondary, then tertiary. But if we interlink all the food chains, that will be called as the food web. Consumers that actively hunt other organisms, they are called as the predators. They are going to feed on the other individuals. They are called as the predators. Competition occurs when two or more individuals or populations attempt to use the same source of environment. They are such as food, water, and shelter. So competition is when individual from either from the same species, maybe from the different species, they are going to fight with each other for a particular thing, maybe for the food, maybe for the sake of resources. This is called as competition. A relationship between two species living together closely is called as the symbiosis. Any type of relationship when two species are living together, this is called as symbiosis. We have studied mutualism as an example. It was simply when everybody was getting benefit from each other. We have studied competition. We studied like a competition in which everybody is going to compete with each other for the food. Next point is introduction of new species over haunting that led to change in water supply, migration rate. There are some factors who are going to cause the ecological imbalancing, because obviously one factor would raise, other factor would stop. In this one we have studied example for frog and snail. Obviously no one was there to feed on them, no one was there to eat them off. That is why they were multiplying uncontrollably. The increasing rate of greenhouse effect and ozone depletion is increasing the average temperature of the earth. As a result, the global warming is causing the earth's temperature even is getting high with the passage of time. So this is called as greenhouse effect, because generally they are emitting carbon dioxide. When carbon dioxide is going to be emitted, that carbon dioxide would be added into atmosphere. As soon as they are added into the atmosphere, carbon dioxide would help to raise the temperature of the earth, and when the earth's temperature is increasing, this is called as the global warming. With that we studied association of the association of the other factors, such as the temperature. When temperature is, melting of glacier occurs, on and off flooding would be seen, tsunamis are coming. So that and multiple other factors, even endangered species are example of these global warming, because these issues are hard to cope. So that's it for the chapter as per key points. So that's it till this point. See you in the next video with the exercise questions, the solutions, and a bit discussion for the additional questions. So hit like button, subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Good luck.